Hey friends, you know that moment when you bite into something and your whole world lights up with flavors exploding in every direction? Well, buckle up, because today we're cracking open the massive, mind-blowing world of China's regional cuisines. The real stories, the wild techniques, and the dishes that will completely change how you order takeout forever. You've probably tried Chinese food at your local spot, but trust me, what you're getting is just the tip of an enormous, ancient iceberg. From fiery mountains in the southwest to elegant imperial kitchens in the north, every region has its own personality, its own history, and its own way of making your taste buds dance. We're going deep, dish by dish, so you can finally understand why Sichuan sets your mouth on fire, while Cantonese feels like a gentle hug. Let's dive right in. First up, let's talk about the legend that started it all for spice lovers everywhere: Sichuan cuisine. Born in the misty, rugged mountains of southwestern China, this style has been evolving for over 2,000 years. But the blazing hot version you crave today? That actually showed up much later. Picture tender cubes of silky tofu swimming in a sauce so loaded with ground pork, chili oil, and those magical Sichuan peppercorns that it creates this insane sensation called mala, numbing and spicy all at once. The chefs there are flavor architects, stacking sweet, sour, spicy, and salty layers until every single bite feels like a fireworks show in your mouth. You take that first spoonful of Mapo Tofu and boom! The bold, fiery punch hits up front with a tingly electric buzz from the peppercorns that makes your lips vibrate in the best possible way. Then the soft, custardy tofu melts instantly on your tongue, carrying rich, savory pork crumbles and that deep, toasty chili oil that lingers with a velvety heat. It's intense, aromatic, and totally unforgettable. Like the dish is daring you to keep eating even as your forehead starts sweating. Here's a surprising twist you'd never guess. Before the 17th century, Sichuan cooks weren't even using those bright red chilies you see today. They relied on native peppers for heat until chilies sailed in from the Americas. And once they arrived, everything changed. The truth is actually the opposite of what most people think. The fiery reputation we love is actually pretty new in the grand scheme of things. The drama behind it is wild. Imagine ancient traders hauling exotic ingredients across dangerous mountain passes, while locals experimented in tiny kitchens, turning simple ingredients into legendary meals. Later, when those New World chilies hit China, Sichuan cooks went all in, creating dishes that could survive harsh winters and keep energy high in the humid climate. It's like the region said, "Challenge accepted," and turned spice into an art form that's been passed down for centuries. While most Americans still picture mild, sweet and sour takeout when they hear Chinese food, in Europe, people are starting to seek out authentic Sichuan spots that lean hard into that mala magic. Starbucks might have popularized lattes worldwide, but real Sichuan heat is what's exploding on foodie maps in California and New York right now. Perfect for keto fans who want big flavor without the carbs. Here's a super practical tip for you back home. Next time you're at Whole Foods or your local Asian market, grab whole Sichuan peppercorns instead of the pre-ground stuff. Toast them lightly in a dry pan for 30 seconds to wake up that tingly numbing power. Order Mapo Tofu mild the first time if you're a beginner, then work your way up. Pair it with an ice-cold Tsingtao beer to cut through the heat, and you'll feel like you're sitting in a bustling Chengdu street stall. Pro move: keep a bowl of plain rice nearby because the sauce is so addictive you'll want something to soak it all up. And don't stop at Mapo. You've got to try Pao Chicken next. This stir-fried beauty brings together juicy chicken pieces, crunchy peanuts, dried chilies, and crisp veggies tossed in a sweet and spicy sauce that balances everything perfectly. The bold, fiery punch comes from the chilies up front, but then the peanuts give this satisfying crunch, while the sauce coats everything in a glossy, caramelized hug that melts on your tongue with rich, toasty notes. Surprising twist. Most Western versions you've had are way sweeter and milder than the real deal. The authentic one packs way more heat and less sugar because Sichuan chefs refuse to hold back. The short history here is pure drama. Picture families in humid rice farming villages perfecting quick stir-fries that could feed hungry workers fast. When chilies arrived, these dishes became weapons against the damp climate, turning everyday meals into bold statements of flavor. In the US, people often think Chinese food means heavy sauces, but Europeans who've traveled love ordering the real Kung Pao because it feels lighter and fresher. Beginners in the UK will crush this at home. It's faster than delivery. Tip time. At Tesco or Costco, look for pre-marinated chicken and jarred Sichuan chili oil. Make it at home in under 15 minutes on high heat so the veggies stay crisp. Pair with a crisp white wine to balance the spice, and you've got a weeknight winner that'll impress your friends. Then there's Sichuan Hot Pot, the ultimate group experience. You drop meat, veggies, and noodles into a bubbling red vat of spicy oil packed with chilies and peppercorns. The oily, fiery broth coats every bite with that signature mala tingle, crispy outside on the meats, juicy inside, and silky smooth finish from the dipping sauces. Surprising twist. Even though it looks terrifyingly hot, the secret most people don't know is that the numbing peppercorns actually help your mouth handle more spice than you think possible. History drama. This communal pot style grew from ancient traditions of sharing food around the fire during cold mountain nights, later exploding when chilies made everything more exciting. Western comparison. While Americans love their barbecue parties, Europeans are catching on to hot pot as the new social dining trend, way more interactive than fondue. Tip. At your local hot pot spot, ask for half-spicy, half-mild broth if you're easing in. Grab fresh lamb slices and enoki mushrooms from the buffet. Back home, Costco sells electric hot pot kits, perfect for keto nights with zero-carb veggies. Moving on to Hunan cuisine, often confused with Sichuan, but totally its own beast. This style comes straight from China's agricultural heartland, where wet rice farming has fed people for thousands of years. The humid climate actually makes people crave spice to stay cool and refreshed. Unlike Sichuan's numbing mala, Hunan goes for straight-up dry heat. Fresh peppers, no peppercorns, just pure, straightforward fire. Take Chairman Mao's absolute favorite, Hong Shao pork. Thick chunks of pork belly braised in soy sauce, sugar, and spices until they turn melt-in-your-mouth tender. The rich, glossy sauce clings to every fatty bite with sweet, savory depth. Crispy skin edges giving way to juicy, fall-apart meat that's pure comfort. Here's a surprising twist. Even though it looks heavy, the secret is that Hunan chefs balance it so perfectly with fresh chilies that it actually feels light and energizing. The history is straight-up legendary. Picture revolutionary leaders fueling up on these bold braises during long marches. Mao himself loved it so much it became a symbol of Hunan pride. While Americans might reach for barbecue ribs, Europeans love this style because it reminds them of slow-cooked European stews, but with way more personality. Perfect for keto fans in California who want rich fat without the guilt. Tip. At Whole Foods, pick up pork belly and braise it low and slow in your Instant Pot. Add fresh chilies from the produce section. Pair with a bold red wine, and you've got date night magic. Beginners, start with less sugar if you're watching carbs. It still slaps. Another Hunan showstopper is steamed fish head with chopped chilies. It looks dramatic. A whole fish head piled high with bright red chilies and garlic, but tastes incredible. The steaming locks in every fresh, hot flavor, so the fish stays incredibly moist, flaky, and infused with that straightforward spicy kick. Surprising twist. You'd never guess that this bold-looking dish is actually all about letting the natural sweetness of the fish shine through the heat. Drama. In the rice paddies and rivers of Hunan, people turned simple steaming into high art because it preserved freshness in the humid heat. Western take. Most U.S. Chinese spots skip the drama, but in the UK and Australia, foodies are discovering how elegant this can be. Tip: order it at authentic spots or make it at home with Costco frozen fish heads and Tesco chili flakes. Steam for 12 minutes max. Pair with cold beer and thank me later. Now let's shift gears to Cantonese cuisine, the one most Westerners think of when they say Chinese food. Coming from Guangdong province in the south, including Hong Kong, this style is one of the oldest traditions, shaped by the South China Sea and its role as a trading powerhouse. Cantonese merchants literally spread it around the globe through immigration, but the philosophy here is completely different. Light, fresh, and delicate, letting every ingredient's natural flavor shine without heavy spices. The crown jewel? Dim sum. Those bite-sized treasures served in bamboo steamers. Hargao, with translucent wrappers hugging plump shrimp. Siu mai packed with pork and shrimp. And char siu bao, fluffy steamed buns bursting with sweet barbecued pork. You'll also see windows full of crispy pork belly, glossy roast duck, and oceans of fresh seafood because they're right on the coast. Each piece melts instantly on your tongue with velvety textures. The shrimp dumpling wrapper, so delicate it's almost see-through. The pork bun, sweet savory and pillowy soft. Surprising twist. Ironically, the reason Cantonese food feels so light is because the chefs obsess over technique and freshness instead of masking flavors with spice. History drama. Imagine bustling ports where traders swapped ideas and ingredients for centuries, turning simple steaming into an art that conquered the world. While Americans load up on heavy sauces, Europeans adore Cantonese for its elegance. Think fine dining meets comfort food. Starbucks made coffee global, but dim sum brunches are the real weekend ritual now exploding in California. Tip for you. Next weekend at your local dim sum spot, grab a rolling cart and try everything once. At Tesco or Whole Foods, pick up frozen hargao and steam them yourself. Beginners love how forgiving it is. Pair roast duck with a light Pinot Noir, and you'll feel like you're in Hong Kong without leaving home. Low-carb fans, stick to the shrimp dumplings and skip the buns for a keto-friendly feast. And speaking of classics, that crispy pork belly and glossy roast duck? The skin shatters with every bite, while the meat stays juicy and flavorful. Pure coastal magic. Surprising twist. The secret most people don't know is that Cantonese chefs use incredibly precise timing and minimal seasoning, so the natural sweetness of the pork and duck come through loud and clear. We're already deep into the journey, and there's so much more. But that's it for now. All right, friends. If your mouth is still tingling from that light, fresh Cantonese magic, buckle up, because we're charging straight north to the birthplace of emperors and refined technique. Shandong cuisine. This is the elegant, influential style from northern China that's been perfecting dishes for over 2,500 years, right where Confucius was born and imperial kitchens demanded perfection. Shandong chefs focus on seafood, soups, and braising, delivering salty, crispy, tender bites that feel both hearty and sophisticated. Picture a whole sweet and sour carp hitting your plate, the ultimate showstopper. The fish is scored deeply, deep-fried until the skin turns shatteringly crispy, then drenched in a glossy, tangy, sweet sauce that clings to every flaky bite. You take that first forkful, and the bold, sweet-sour punch explodes up front with bright vinegar brightness balanced by just enough sugar. The outside is ultra-crispy and golden, giving way to the juiciest, tender white flesh inside that melts on your tongue with a silky, clean finish and subtle ocean sweetness. Here's a surprising twist you'd never guess. Even though the sauce looks bold, the secret most people don't know is that Shandong chefs use almost no heavy spices. It's all about precise technique, letting the fish's natural flavor shine through. The drama is pure imperial history. Imagine chefs in ancient palace kitchens over 2,500 years ago, refining braising and frying methods to impress emperors, passing those secrets down through generations, while the region's coastal waters supplied the freshest catch. While most Americans still default to syrupy takeout sweet and sour, in Europe they treat this as fine dining Chinese, because it feels refined and balanced. Perfect for keto fans in California who want big flavor from protein without extra carbs. Here's your real-world tip. Next time you're at Whole Foods or Tesco, grab a whole fresh carp or snapper and score it yourself at home. Fry it hot and fast in neutral oil. Then simmer the sauce separately so it stays glossy. Beginners love how forgiving the scoring technique is. Pair it with a crisp Sauvignon Blanc to cut the sweetness, and you'll swear you're eating at a Michelin-starred spot in Beijing. Another Shandong classic is Dezhou braised chicken. Thick, juicy pieces, slow braised until the meat falls off the bone in a savory, aromatic broth. The skin turns beautifully golden, and the flavor soaks deep into every fiber, with that signature, salty, tender balance. Surprisingly, the truth is actually the opposite of what you'd expect. This hearty-looking dish stays light because Shandong chefs rely on long, slow cooking instead of heavy sauces. History-wise, picture imperial court banquets, where these braises symbolized abundance and were served to emperors traveling through the region. It became a symbol of northern Chinese hospitality, passed down for centuries. In the U.S., people often think northern food is heavy, but Europeans who've visited love how elegant and soup-focused it feels, compared to spicier southern styles. Starbucks might have gone global with coffee, but Shandong soups are the quiet luxury trend blowing up among foodies right now. Tip for you. Costco sells great chicken thighs. Braise them low and slow in your Dutch oven with soy, ginger, and star anise for 2 hours. Low-carb crew, skip any sugar and you're golden. Order it at authentic spots if you're in the UK. Pair with a light lager and thank me later. Shandong is also famous for its crystal-clear broth soups that take hours of careful skimming. One slurp, and you get this clean, umami-rich warmth that feels like a hug from the inside. You'd never guess the secret. The chefs obsess over removing every impurity, so the natural flavors of seafood and vegetables come through pure and bright. Now let's slide east along the coast to Jiangsu and Zhejiang cuisines, often called the elegant styles, with stunning visual beauty and perfectly balanced sweet flavors. These regions grew rich from silk, canals, and trade, so the cooking became all about color, shape, and harmony. Take lion's head meatballs. Massive, tender pork meatballs gently simmered in a light broth until they're pillow soft. The outside is delicately browned, while the inside stays juicy and aromatic, with just a hint of ginger and scallion. The bold, savory punch hits first, then the velvety texture melts instantly on your tongue, with rich, comforting pork notes and a silky broth finish that feels luxurious. Here's a surprising twist. Ironically, these giant meatballs are named lion's head because they look fierce in the bowl, but they're actually one of the gentlest, most comforting dishes in all of China. Drama time. Imagine wealthy merchant families along the Grand Canal perfecting these recipes over centuries, turning simple pork into edible art that even emperors requested. While Americans might go for spaghetti and meatballs, Europeans adore this for its refined presentation. It's like Chinese comfort food meets fine dining. Beginners in the UK will nail this at home because the simmering is super forgiving. Tip: at Tesco, grab ground pork and form the meatballs big. Simmer in chicken stock with bok choy. Pair with a chilled Riesling, and you've got weekend dinner party gold. Keto friends, serve over cauliflower rice, and it's still perfect. Then there's dong po pork. Square blocks of pork belly braised in soy sauce and wine until it's soft as jelly, rich, sweet, and utterly melt in your mouth. The fatty layers turn translucent, and the skin stays silky while the meat falls apart with deep, caramelized savoriness. Surprising twist. The truth is actually the opposite. This ultra-rich dish was created by a poet named Su Dongpo, who accidentally perfected it while distracted, and it became a symbol of poetic elegance. History. The region's wealth from trade let chefs experiment endlessly, creating dishes that balance sweetness and umami like no other. In California keto circles, they love it for the pure fat energy. Europeans compare it to French confit, but with Chinese soul. Tip: Whole Foods has amazing pork belly. Braise it covered for 3 hours. Beginners use a slow cooker and you can't mess it up. Pair with jasmine tea to cut the richness. Next up, Sichuan Cuisine on the southwestern coast, where seafood and soups rule thanks to centuries of maritime trade and migration that carried these flavors all the way to Taiwan and Southeast Asia. Fujian chefs are absolute masters of stock making, building deep umami broths that become the soul of almost every dish. The food is light yet incredibly flavorful, often slightly sweet with red wine lees for marinating. The undisputed king is Buddha Jumps Over the Wall. This legendary complex soup packed with shark fin, abalone, sea cucumber, chicken, ham, and more. All slow cooked together for hours. The aroma is so intoxicating, the name comes from a monk who supposedly jumped a wall just to taste it. One spoonful, and the rich, layered umami explodes with silky textures from the seafood, tender meats, and a deep, savory broth that coats your tongue in velvet warmth. Here's a surprising twist. You'd never guess that this ultra-luxury soup started as a humble fisherman's dish before merchants elevated it with exotic ingredients. Drama. Fujian's sailors and traders carried these recipes across Asian sea routes for centuries, turning coastal necessity into legendary feasts. While most Americans think Chinese soup means egg drop, Europeans who've traveled love how refined and multi-layered Fujian broths feel. Perfect for low-carb fans who want maximum flavor from protein. Tip: at Costco, grab canned abalone and dried sea cucumber if you're feeling fancy. Or simplify with shrimp and chicken for beginners. Simmer low and slow. Pair with a dry white wine, and you'll feel transported to Xiamen. Other Fujian hits include oyster omelets with crispy edges and juicy oysters inside, plus fish balls that bounce with fresh sweetness. Everything stays light but packed with ocean umami. Now we hit Beijing, the capital that absorbed influences from everywhere for over 800 years, blending Manchu and Mongolian touches into hearty northern fare. The absolute icon? Peking duck. That glossy, crispy-skinned duck roasted to perfection, served with thin pancakes, spring onions, cucumber, and sweet bean sauce. You roll it all up and take that first bite. The skin shatters with an audible crunch, while the rich duck meat stays juicy and flavorful. The bold, savory punch from the crispy skin gives way to a silky, fatty melt on your tongue, with sweet sauce balancing everything perfectly. Surprising twist: the secret most people don't know is that the duck is inflated with air before roasting, so the skin separates and gets ultra crispy, a technique perfected over centuries. History drama. Imperial palaces in Beijing hosted chefs from every region, and this duck became the ultimate symbol of the city under multiple dynasties. While Americans line up for crispy duck at takeout spots, Europeans treat it like a special occasion ritual. In New York and London, it's the dish that screams, "I know my Chinese food." Tip: at your local Chinatown spot, order it whole and watch the carving. Back home, Whole Foods sells duck breasts you can crisp in the oven. Beginners, use a rack so the fat renders perfectly. Pair with a light Pinot Noir and you're living like royalty. Beijing also has zhazhang noodles, fresh wheat noodles tossed with fermented soybean paste, ground pork, and crunchy fresh veggies. Plus their own hot pot in a copper pot with mild clear broth and lamb slices. Totally different from Sichuan fire. The flavors are hearty, aromatic, and comforting with that northern soul. Moving west to Xinjiang, this is where the Silk Road meets China and everything changes. Home to the Uyghur people, the cuisine is bold, meaty, and aromatic with heavy cumin, chili, and Central Asian vibes that feel closer to Turkish or Uzbek food than anything you'd call typical Chinese. Lamb skewers grilled over charcoal are everywhere. Chunks of juicy lamb seasoned aggressively with cumin and chili, charred on the outside, pink and tender inside. You bite in and the smoky, spicy punch hits first, followed by that crispy charred crust giving way to juicy, fatty lamb that melts with warm, earthy cumin notes. Here's a surprising twist. Ironically, this street food favorite traveled along the same ancient trade routes that brought spices from Persia and beyond, making it a true East meets West fusion. Drama. For centuries, caravans crossed the deserts, swapping ingredients and techniques that created this vibrant, meat-centric style. While Americans might think of kebabs as Middle Eastern, Europeans are discovering